Simon Factor from Vidiro, welcome to Irish Startup TV.
Thank you very much, it's a pleasure to be here.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about Vidiro?
So Vidiro are a video analytics company, and we specialise in audience and behavioural analytics within online video markets. So we work with companies who want to build an audience for their brand on YouTube, for example, or companies who want to target particular audiences on a platform such as YouTube.
Where is the business at? You're not quite early stage, you're slightly the other side of it?
We've been around for 2 years. So we launched the business in 2013, and we won some CSF funding at that point from Enterprise Ireland, which was a great help to us at the very beginning. And at that time, we had a vision for the product. We had some ideas about our MVP, and we went out to the market with our initial ideas, and then found that maybe some of those things needed to change a little bit in order for us to create products that were going to be a foundation for us to build a business on. And so it was actually late 2013 when we came into contact with our first kind of foundation customer. So we got hooked up with Psycho, the company that produced the X Factor, and also are involved in Britain's Got Talent. And they were interested in using video analytics and audience analytics to try and detect new talent on YouTube. So it was like building the Justin Bieber algorithm, if you will.
Amazing.
So we started to work with them and started to use our analytics on YouTube to help drive suggestions to the casting team or the scouts who are out there looking for new talent to bring into the show. And it became clear to us at that point that we could do a lot more with our audience analytics than we'd initially really thought about. And we started to think more about how we could use our analytics to identify not just talent for a TV show, but perhaps also influencers that might have an audience for a very niche type of content or for a niche product, for example. And then from that point we started to move into advertising and helping companies to target audiences on YouTube and execute advertising campaigns. So the trajectory that's got us to where we are at the moment has kind of come through our learning of bouncing into some of these different companies, learning what they need, and then trying to figure out how we could apply that in a different way to get a wider market penetration or to create more revenue from it. Because ultimately there's not too many X Factor TV shows, so if you want to build a business, you've got to find a wider application for the technology.
On the note of the CSF funding, and the application process is quite rigorous. What do you think is more valuable, the 50K or the application process?
That's a good question, I suppose. Well, it certainly does require you to, really sharpen your position and your pitch and be concise about it, because the amount of information you can deliver in an application like that's quite limited. So yeah, that is valuable. The money is always going to be helpful to a startup. The terms under which Enterprise Ireland operate are very fair, because they're investing in it at a very seed stage, you kind of concept level typically when you're pitching for CSF funding. So it's a good format, I think, for startup companies. It's highly competitive. I think that the year that we applied, there was several iterations that were specific to particular sectors, and I think in our category there was about 100 applicants. So there's a significant amount of competition going on there, and perhaps even more people applied but didn't get into the initial pitch stage. But the competition was good, and it was a good thing to participate in. And the experience is valuable and the money is valuable. I can't really say which one is worth more, but cash is very helpful at the early stages of a company. We did work through another competition in the UK with a kind of similar organisation to Enterprise Ireland called I See Tomorrow. And they also provided us with some financial support in helping us to grow our operations in the UK. But the mechanism through which they deliver their funding is slightly different to that which is used by Enterprise Ireland, in that it's not an investment that's in return for equity. The way that this particular scheme worked, which was under it's called the Innovation Competition or Innovation Award, is where they go out and they harvest requirements from large multinational companies, and then they get the startup companies to pitch a solution to the problem that the multinational have outlined. And then they have a X Factor type show where there's a panel of experts and you get to pitch the panel, and it's done in a competition format. And at the end of the day, whoever wins is essentially has won the opportunity to deliver the solution. And the amount of money that's provided, you know, in that, it's not quite the same level as what's being offered in the CSF funding. But
you get a customer at the end of it, which is
you get a customer.
Important.
Well, this is really important. You get some money, you get a customer, and hopefully, you know, from that you'll get some good PR as well. So, you know, there's a lot of value that can come from that. But it's an interesting format, you know, to apply. But all of these types of mechanisms are really useful, you know, when you're trying to set up a business. The first business I set up was in 2003, and it was a studio business called Moving Media, and we focused on digitizing large media collections for content owners and publishers. So back in those days, this is when, you know, iPads weren't invented, you know, iPods had just come out. So record labels who traditionally distributed on physical media like CD were now moving into digital distribution via things like iTunes. So they had to get their old catalogue.
So they have to digitize it?
Yeah, they have to digitize it all. So I set up studio operations in LA and also in Dublin. We used to provide these kinds of digitization services, and that business was very successful, and it kind of ran its course over about a decade. But now everything's more digital, so you know, this kind of requirement isn't there. But the learnings that came through that helped me to formulate my plan for Vidiro. But when I set that company up, Enterprise Ireland were very, very supportive. Back then there was no CSF funding, but they did support us in terms of providing access to things like feasibility study grants that allowed us to go out, check the market, understand the customer need, you know, to finance getting us out to some trade shows, to pitch our ideas, get the feedback that allowed us to really build a product. And also, when we did raise investment for that business, there were some other agencies here who came in on those investment rounds as well, and kept the private investors honest, I suppose I should say.
It was a great validation. If Enterprise Ireland are backing you, then it's going to be great validation for other investors as well.
That's true, yeah, absolutely. And I think that it can be difficult sometimes when you're trying to raise, like, you know, a seed round. You know, it's a difficult one, because if it seems to me that the level of investment that a lot of companies here are going in for their first round, like not this kind of pre-seed funding that we're talking about here, but maybe a first round. I wouldn't really call it, you know, an A round. It's not a large thing for a company to scale with. But say it's 700,000 to 1 million, for example. If you're out raising that kind of money and you're looking towards raising it from a range of different investors, getting everyone aligned and harmonized around the term sheets is often something that can be problematic. So this is something that's easier now. It certainly wasn't like 10 years ago as easy, because a lot of investors hadn't syndicated what they were doing. But there's organizations out there like Halo Business Angels who come together.
Yeah, HMAN.
Yeah, exactly. They manage this side of things really effectively now. I think that if you've got to bring in a lot of different people into a round at that level, it can be very complicated. And also, so if you have somebody like Enterprise Ireland who can help you to understand.
Yeah, they have a very nice structured approach towards investment.
So they can be very, very useful in these things, and also in providing confidence if the investment, you know, in those kinds of rounds is you know, a certain percentage is coming from a private and then someone's coming in from you. Does that confidence to bring it together and mix it that way. I suppose perhaps the privateers could see it as adding value to their investment. You know, so it's good.
So the previous company you founded in 2003, and Vidiro has been in existence for roughly 2 years.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also that the previous company had ostensibly a shelf life of circa 10 years.
Yeah.
So was there some significant trigger, jumping off point that inspired you to do Vidiro, or what was the inspiration?
Absolutely. So about 8 years ago, so around 2007, 2008, online video was starting to really, you know, come out as something that people were investing in. So YouTube had been set up, and Google had purchased YouTube back in 2006. And 2007, there was a couple of companies out there that had really great backing Like there was a company called Juiced, which was funded by the guys who set up Skype. You know, they'd done their exit, they'd had a lot of money, they pushed it down in this direction. And there was another company that was set up by a very, very successful Italian telecoms billionaire, and he based it here in Ireland. And the company's not around anymore, but there was a significant level of investment that went into that company.
What was that company called?
That company was called Babelgun.
Okay.
And they were based out in East Point Business Park. And they did all of the back office and admin and technical stuff from Ireland, but they had their content team in London, they had their advertising team in New York, and they had their marketing team in Milan. It was quite a multinational business, you know, but there was a lot of money that went into building this company. And from a very early stage, I got in with that company as a service provider to do all of the aggregation of media, and then to take in videotapes from, you know, the TV stations they were doing business with, the TV program distribution companies that they were doing business with, to take all of those video assets in, to digitize them, to put them up into the digital platform. And once they were up there, we needed to start thinking about how people would find them. You know, what information needs to exist around a piece of video in order to allow an audience to find it, in order to allow the video platform to more effectively recommend what you might want to watch next. This is all driven by metadata.
It's not by accident.
Yeah, exactly. It's all, we get into this kind of boring area of the technology behind how these user experiences work. But when I was working with this company, it was great because it really allowed us to scale our business at that time, because they had a need across a number of different geographic areas. So we kind of grew with them, and I set up offices in Santa Monica to service the requirements for their US operations. They never succeeded. Likely this had something to do with, it was a very early stage and the advertising revenue wasn't there at that point, right?
Video is a tough thing right now.
Yeah.
You know, John Collins, ex-Irish Times, he's now the content guy at Intercom, which is quite interesting, that editorial has now become content.
Yeah.
And you know, he talks about, he was asked recently at an event, you know, what do you think of the future of media? And he said, oh, it's never been so alive and kicking, it's just the revenue model is broken.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a lot of different revenue models that are emerging. You know, if you look at video and how video's coming on stream, I mean, back in those days, it was all about pre-roll video, right? So you take your TV ad and you put it in front of the online video. And TV advertising was the preserve of large companies with big advertising budgets. And these online video ads were something new, and, you know, they were sold the same way that banner advertising was sold, so on a CPM basis.
But from Pagefare, we've seen some data that suggests that where people didn't mind so much the banner ads, that the video, depending on whether it's pre-roll, mid-roll, it can have a huge impact on whether or not people are going to block it as well. Yes, it can. So the skip rates on video ads can be very high. So we're trying to solve that with Vidiro. I'm glad you brought up this particular subject. Yeah. So just to go back over the point around how you monetize the video first, there's a whole lot of new models. Like, brands are trying to reach audiences online by creating content now. So the medium of video and earning an audience is this new concept. And when you have so many independent creators on a platform like YouTube, you've got, you know, thousands or millions of creators out there creating content, some of whom are gaining traction within niche audiences. The idea of collaborative marketing for brands is becoming really important, and video is a really great vehicle for that sort of delivery of a brand message. So I think that over the next few years, that's going to become more and more important. And if you look at how TV companies are behaving and how the online video market is changing, you've got in YouTube, for example, these companies called MCNs, or multi-channel networks. These are organizations who exist to manage the advertising, inventory and production affairs of a group of YouTube artists or channel owners. And these networks are big. So, for example, Maker Studios was one of the first ones. They were purchased by Disney last year, which set a valuation on that business, Maker Studios, at $1.3 billion. They have a group of YouTube channels which is measured in thousands. You know, they have on their books the most subscribed and viewed YouTube channels, like PewDiePie, for example, the Swedish, I call him a gaming blogger, but he's much more than that now. Similarly, organizations like StyleHole, which was a network of fashion bloggers, that's being purchased by RTL Group as recently as, I think,
or I think it was around February of this year. But when they were purchased, that put a valuation on that business of around 100 million euros. So these companies are essentially becoming like TV stations, right? If you look at YouTube, you have a channel, and the channel has a certain amount of subscribers and a certain amount of views. But an MCN is a bunch of channels that exist together that deliver an audience which has an interest to a particular demographic in a particular content category, such as fashion or gaming, etc. So when you have something like that, you adopt the old model of TV, which is about audience share, reach, views, view time. So it's changing, the way that these organizations are structured, and the valuation within these companies is all changing quite a bit. But the interesting thing there also is that when you have a network like that, you can go to a brand and you can offer them the opportunity to collaborate with the artists within that network on content that's brand specific. So it becomes that collaborative marketing model again. So it's not just about selling ads in the old pre-roll way. Becomes around product placement, endorsement, and collaboration. So these are all new ways of making money out of YouTube. YouTube have their own ideas, I'm sure, about this, because it's harder for them to monetize if their channel owners are making their money out of product placement and collaborations rather than the actual ads.
They make you sign a little form as well.
Well, there's been some changes in their terms and conditions earlier this year. So clearly, and I think also. YouTube they're very progressive when it comes to trying to create new platforms for advertising, and within YouTube they are looking at introducing new advertising products, like they have these new card insert products.
Yes.
So they're changing the range of advertising products, and they're also changing their terms and conditions to help them control how that works.
So going back to this ad blocking business and how that fits in with your offering.
Yeah, so we have this idea we call the Vanity Fair model. So Vanity Fair is a magazine that's very nice to look at, and when you look at this magazine, the ads are blended into the experience. There's probably 70% advertising, but the people who look at this magazine don't mind so much because it's part of the experience. Right? So I think with a lot of online video advertising, it can become quite irritating to the user. I mean, we've all seen the same ad multiple times foisted upon us repeatedly in the same session of watching video. A lot of the online video catch-up services are the worst offenders in this regard, right? So we see the same ads again and again. We're getting annoyed. It's actually affecting our perhaps even our feelings towards the brand of the ad that we're being delivered. So that's not a good outcome for the brand, and it's kind of a broken model. So we feel that by understanding the audience's interests and by targeting based on their interests and their reaction to video, you can increase the completion rate of the videos that are being delivered. So we call this stopping the skip, right? So we work with some digital agencies, mainly in the UK, who execute online video campaigns on YouTube. And what we do is we look at the campaign brief and we think about the type of content people who would be interested in this ad would likely be watching. We then analyze all of the newest videos that have been uploaded to YouTube in that particular day, and we look at the audience engagement statistics around those videos. And by that I mean we look at the ratio of likes and comments to views on the video. So we understand what the video is about, and we understand how the audience is reacting to the video, and we use that data to create a ranked list of videos that are the best performing videos within the niche, and then we buy the pre-roll ad slots on just those videos within a specific geographic area. And what we find when we do that is that the completion rate on the videos increases by 100% over industry averages.
Wow. And
that we get a click-through rate increase of about 30% on those ads. So we've done some testing on this with our UK partners. We work with a company in the UK primarily called Infectious Media. They're a leading programmatic agency, and their clients would include major TV companies and also travel brands and sports brands. So within the context of the briefs, particularly brand campaign briefs that they have, we formulate a plan in order to understand how to reach an audience. So this isn't demographic targeting, it's contextual audience targeting. And there's two key differences there. One is we're targeting the audience based on what they're interested in, and we're also targeting the videos that that audience has shown the highest level of positive reaction to. So it's like the engagement around the videos. So those concepts, contextual and engagement-based targeting, are a step beyond the sort of demographic targeting that we're dealing with at the moment, and hopefully will improve the experience for people who are watching video and stop this kind of fatigue that people get from watching online video and being, you know, bothered by the ads that are being put in front of them. So,
fantastic. What's next on the roadmap? Have you any significant milestones coming up?
Yeah, well, the last few months have been very busy for us. So we completed the development of our talent radar, which is the thing that was used in these TV shows in the UK, and we're now expanding its use to work with a couple of TV shows in America. We've expanded the features of that product to help these multi-channel networks to grow on YouTube. So we're working with some multi-channel networks that are attached to a couple of major record labels on helping them to find emerging talent on YouTube and build these networks. So that's, you know, one side of the business. On the advertising side, we're working with our partners in the UK on developing that, and really that's quite an exciting area for us because the model's quite different. But again, it's a channel strategy, so it's not direct to the user. We're essentially arming this organization with the technology to compete better within their marketplace, which is good for us because we don't have to grow our team. We can grow with them. But one really exciting thing that we're in the middle of at the moment is creating a business intelligence service. So we've in our database we've got information on over 2.5 million YouTube channels. We've analyzed 120 million YouTube videos. We now also connect into other video platforms like Dailymotion and Vimeo. And we have begun to measure social media statistics across Facebook and Twitter and now also Instagram. And we have now compiled this into a very large data repository. With that information, we can start to deliver reports. So earlier in this year, we worked with a leading consultancy firm. They're multinational, they're called IHS, Information Handling Systems. They've about 6,000 staff around the world, and they provide information products to a number of different sectors. One of them would be the media sector. So anyone who'd be familiar with Screen Digest, if they're in the TV production business, IHS would have acquired Screen Digest a couple of years ago, and they've built a media business, media consulting services, media information intelligence services division around that. We worked with them to create a report to understand the market penetration and size of audience for these multi-channel networks, because there's a lot of investment banks and a lot of large broadcast organizations who are currently looking at targeting investment into this marketplace.
They want to better understand how they fit in and get up to speed.
Well, they want to understand what the strengths and weaknesses of these organizations, which are investment targets, are, and what the competitive landscape is like and how those organizations are performing within it. So we began some analysis to try and identify or decode these businesses by analyzing, you know, what kind of an audience do they have on YouTube, because YouTube, it's a fantastic platform, but it's so huge, it's great at hiding stuff. You know, you really only ever see the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, and these multi-channel networks will typically pitch themselves as having, you know, 3,000 channels in their network who've got 25 million subscribers and to date have accrued 250 million views on their videos.
How do you action that? That's a big question, and that's the answer that you guys can provide by the sounds of things.
Well, that's a high level number.
Yeah.
But the problem with a number like that is it doesn't tell you about the relative performance over time, right? Because if that network has been around for 5 years and those performance figures, if you look at it on a weekly basis and the delta in those weekly figures, you're not really seeing what the current performance of the network is relevant to its peers, right? So what we do is we track data on 2.5 million channels, we understand which multi-channel networks those channels are in, and we look at the overall audience in total for what's happening within those 2.5 million channels, and we can then understand the relative performance of each of those multi-channel networks, because we can roll up all the channel data together for each of the multi-channel networks and see from week to week who's performing. Because we have other technology within our systems that allow us to categorize the video, we can also see who's doing the best in the food category, or who's doing the best in the basketball category, or who's doing the best in fashion reviews category. You can't really do that if you look at YouTube, because YouTube doesn't categorize things in that way. And also, to a human, you can't see which multi-channel network a channel is associated with. So you can only use these big data analytics approaches to gain these kinds of insights. In order to create these reports, you've got to run a massive analytics platform. Like we run many billions of queries.
So you guys provide this analytics platform?
Yeah, we do. Well, we either provide, like the analytics platform in itself allows us to create products, right? And the analytics platform sits beside YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, etc. So it's pulling in all of this data. So we understand who this channel owner is. We understand what their Twitter account is. We understand what their Instagram account is, and we pull all this performance data into our system. If an agency wants to find, who are the most influential ladies' handbag bloggers of the moment, we can tell them that, right? That's no problem. And then they can go and they can invite them to the fashion show, or give them a sample, or pay them lucratively for product placement, or whatever the deal is that they're trying to put together. If it's the advertising context, if a brand comes to us or our agency partner says, I want to target people who are interested in cult TV shows because I have a new app that has this sort of an angle, we'll find that audience on YouTube, and we'll deliver the pre-roll ad just to those people who are watching cult TV related content, but the cult TV related content of the day that's getting the most views, that people are showing the highest level of engagement with. If it's about giving an investment bank an idea on which MCNs are the highest performers in the food category, for example. Is it Jamie Oliver's Food Tube, or is it Laura Vitale's channel, or is it Sorted Food, etc.? We can figure out all of the channels in the network, or who are associated with those channels, and understand the relative market share, not just in the whole of YouTube, but of food-related or recipe-related instructional videos on YouTube in the last 7 days. So you can give really granular insights into what's going on. But all of this comes from our data analytics platform. We call that platform Vidiro Perform Platform. So we productize off that platform. And depending on who we're dealing with, we'll open up different features or functions within that platform. So that's
fantastic.
How it works.
Well, Simon Factor, it certainly sounds like Vidiro has the X factor. And I'm excited to see, this is a really exciting time for digital advertising, digital media, and I'm really excited to see an Irish company at the forefront of that. So thanks very much for speaking to Irish Startup TV, and look forward to continuing to monitor and track the progress.
My pleasure, thank you very much.
Thank you.